Alright, so moving along with the high pressure hose replacement on the 2004 F-150, I got a puller here for the power steering pressure, for the power steering pump itself, in order to get to the high pressure line on the bottom. I did try to remove the pump, but those 10 mil bolts don't seem too happy to come out. I don't want to break them. If I end up breaking them, then I'll have to replace whatever they're going into. It looks like they could be going into the front cover, maybe the block, I don't know, but I don't want to have to replace nothing too much more. Looking underneath the truck here, as you see, I got the lines taken off. This low pressure line, I ordered this line, but it is not, I repeat, it is not coming out of the rack, so I might have to just wing it and run it again. It's kind of rusty right where it goes into the rack, but it's so difficult to get out of the rack that it might just break. And I don't want to have to remove the entire rack and pinion because that broke off in the rack. But I got the entire pressure line free. The bolt there from the block. I don't know if you guys can see that. There's a bolt. Bolt right up in here. There's a nut that's out. I can't actually pull it off until I get the high pressure line disconnected. So I'm gonna try to pull the pulley, and it seems like the pulley is coming off. The pulley's coming off just fine. Just a matter of getting it off. I got the wrenches here holding it. This wrench here is on the underneath the ABS pump, and it's just kind of caught on the ABS pump bracket, and it's kind of cased up in there. So I'm just turning it and slowly but surely getting the power steering pulley off. So we'll see if this works and gives me enough access to get the high pressure line off. I'm not sure if it will or won't, but I think it will. Anyway, I'll keep you updated. Alright guys, here is where we are. So I finally managed to get the high pressure power steering hose off using this drill bit. So what I ended up doing is putting a hole saw drill bit on this long extension and using this extension on the drill to reach all the way up at the high pressure hose and drilling up around it. So essentially drilling around the hose like so that I would cut the hose off, so that I can put a socket on the hose. So the hose ended up being, it wouldn't allow an 18 mil on it because it's a little bit hanging off the edge, so I ended up having to go up to a 19 millimeter socket, which ended up, it was risky, but ended up working out real good. I figured being that it was such a big, bolt with low torque, it should come out. So I just went ahead and went to a 19 socket because an 18 wouldn't get around this, and I put a couple extensions and wobbles together and used the impact wrench to run it out, and it came right out. So I've tried a number of different ways of doing this, and what I found is that the power steering pump itself, the 10 millimeter bolts that are holding it, they're really long and they're probably going to break. I can feel the head's already getting ready to break. You can see the head of it twisting, but the long bolt going through all of this and then to what looks like it goes into the front cover, it's just twisting and it's probably going to break. So if I go ahead and just break all the bolts and then have to figure out how to get them out of the front cover and all that's a big mess. So I decided to leave the power steering pump installed and go ahead and use a puller to remove the pulley, which ended up working out pretty good. It came right out. I mean, it was a little awkward, and I just ended up kind of loosening up this front fan shroud a little, so it could just kind of move out of the way a little bit. Because like once you put that tool on the power steering pump, your fan shroud's in the way. So I just kind of loosened it up so that I could just set it aside. In order to actually take the fan shroud all the way off, it looks like you have to take off the actual fan from the fan clutch, and that's that's a lot of work. I don't have the tools to do that either. So there's that. What else? We got like I said, we got this off. I did break the little plastic thing, that little plastic tang, but I'll just ended up cleaning it up real nice and putting some tape on it, some high strength tape just to keep it from popping off. But it ain't gonna pop off either way. But here's the hose, it's out, so I'll still have to take off this pressure switch. But the hose is 100% out, and I can now go ahead and put in our new hose. Believe it or not, I can actually put in the new hose. Looking underneath, I did want to replace the low pressure hose going to the low pressure hose here, going to or from the power steering rack to the over to the back up to the reservoir. But I ended up really honestly not being able to get it out. I hit it with a hammer and a chisel, and the way that it's put in there, they're stuck in there. So I don't know if it's gonna leak. It was pretty rusty. I cleaned it up pretty good. It had this plastic clip on it that kind of holds the, I don't know what it does. It kind of keeps the line away from the, it doesn't really do much. I don't know. It keeps the line from accidentally touching the pump housing here, but the rust was, it's supposed to prevent it from touching right up in here, but the rust that was building up on this, if you can see, right where it like makes contact with the metal, some kind of reaction's happening, and it's just rotting out the hose. I don't know if it's leaking right now. I don't know if it's going to leak because I was messing with it, but I'm probably going to try and leave it in there just because it is not giving in for me at all. I mean, like, at all. It's not budging. It's not coming out as of right now. Now, if I have to take it out, if it leaks, it's not too big a deal. It's not like the high pressure stuff's in the way, but if I can't get this out, then, and it leaks, then I have to actually remove the whole entire steering gear. And once the gear is out, maybe you can see it, or maybe you just go and replace the gear at that point. But that is where I'm at. Pretty much I'm in a place where I'm about to flip the switch on the ratchet and start putting things back on the truck. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and try to clean out these ports, because I should have covered that port where the high pressure line went into, but I didn't. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use try to use like a shop vac or something to, if I can get in there and suck out everything. If not, I'll just wipe it out with a rag. I don't think nothing really got in there, just a little bit of black stuff just right in the front. Nothing got all the way in there. So all in all, it is coming along. It's a huge project, and if I would have put this in the shop, you know, it would have cost me a fortune, because they would have got all hung up with all the rot. These things, it seems like Ford just makes everything hard. I've never worked on a vehicle that was this hard to service. Man, it's like if you take anything off of this vehicle, there's something in the way. No matter what you do, there's something else. Like every bolt runs into something. Like if you take it out, it runs into something. For example, our fan shroud. You try to take the fan shroud off. If it was a GM, the fan shroud would come right up. That top half would come up, and the bottom half would stay underneath the fan, so that you don't. Now this design, you have to literally take the whole fan off the clutch in order to get the shroud. Like, come on, man. It's just, the stuff is just, everything is just covering the next thing. It's covering the next thing. It's almost like they sat down and engineered this truck to just be a nightmare to service. It just seems that way. How can we make every service cost more for our customers? So that's just how I feel about that. But yeah, like I said, guys, I took this thing, this drill bit, this whole setup here, I took this up from the bottom, all the way up from the bottom, and just drilled around that thing. That was pretty insane. I just couldn't figure out how I was going to cut that line because it's so far in there. And actually covered up the oil filter housing so that I wouldn't get metal shavings into the engine. There are metal shavings. That's a big gaping opening that can just take up take in those metal shavings, and who knows what will happen. But yeah, that's where we are. I gotta go ahead and looks like I'm ready to put everything back together. Hopefully we can get this leak situated and I didn't cause another leak from messing around with that other hose. But you know, so we'll get it going, we'll get it fixed. You know, if that bottom was leaking, I might put it in the shop, because this truck is such a nightmare to work on. I've never seen such a vehicle, such a nightmare vehicle. I've worked on 6.0 Chevy. I had an 04. I worked on the 3800, a lot of the 3800 GM products. I've done their intakes. I've done engine swaps on those. Like, I feel like the amount of work to replace just this power steering hose, you could have had an engine out of a Chevy. You literally could have just had an engine pulled. That's how much more work a Ford is. So, I mean, if you're going to work on one of these, just be committed to just so many special tools. You need a puller. Like, how often do I need to pull I've never really had to pull a pulley off of a puller or off of a pump for any reason. But now that I'm messing with old Fords, like, I'm pulling pulleys off of power steering pumps. I can't reach anything on the power steering pump without taking the pulley off. Man, in hindsight, maybe I could have left the pulley on now that I've drilled. No, you know what? I'm trying to think if I could have left that pulley on now that I've came at everything from the bottom. I don't know. Maybe. You know, now that I've figured out how I'm going to drill around it, wondering if that pulley could have stayed in place. It's kind of an interesting. You know, I think I pulled the pulley off because at some point I figured I was going to replace or have to remove the pump. But the pump is not coming out of here without breaking these bolts. So it's just complicated, you know. Just a very complicated situation. I thought once that pulley was off, I would be able to just get an open-end wrench onto the bolt. Yeah, that's the issue. I thought once I got the pulley off, I could get an open-end wrench on the 18mm bolt. But once I got the pulley off, I can get the wrench on there, but there's literally no room unless I drain the coolant down, because the coolant hose impeded the wrench from turning, and the fan shroud impeded anything from the wrench turning, and it was just awkward. I tried to turn it with just a wrench underneath, and I could not turn that with the wrench underneath. So honestly, though, in hindsight, I probably could have just not pulled that pulley off with everything that I did. You know, cutting the hose from the bottom like I did with this hole saw. Came in a kit here. But cutting at it from the bottom like that with the hole saw, I probably could have got to it without pulling the pulley off of the pump. But man, what a boatload of work this thing is. I'm gonna have a lot of pride once I finish putting this all back together, because this thing is just complicated. You know, that it's unnecessarily complicated. The 5.4, their engines are big, you know, compared to the Chevys. Being that a lot of the truck engines and Chevys were, I think all of them were push rod engines. They're physically smaller engines, but have more displacement, ironically. The closest displacement to this would be like a 5.3, but it's a way smaller engine. And if you had a 6.0 or a 6.2 or whatever, it's pretty much the same size of an engine. You'd have all this room to reach around. And they had to really cram this thing in here because their modular engines were just big. But nonetheless, I still like the truck. They're still good trucks. The one thing I like is that the braking system is still good. But man, working on these things, what a nightmare. So anyway, thanks for watching. Comment below. I'll keep you updated on the project and hope to hear from you soon. Bye.